Time, March 1962. Destination, Scotland. The occasion, the World Curling Championship for the Scotch Cup. Defending the honor of Canada's curlers, the fabulous Richardsons of Regina. 3-time winners of the Brier and twice winners of the Scotch Cup, out after a third triumph. There's vice skip Arnold Richardson, fun-loving Garnet, the second, more commonly known as Sam. At lead, Wes, a cousin to both Arnold and Sam, and to Ernie Richardson, Sam's brother and the skip of the rink. Among the many passengers who made the journey were curlers from various parts of Canada and the United States, including the champions of the U.S. Men's Curling Association from Hibbing, Minnesota. This, too, was a family rink, or almost so. Fran Clefman was the skip, Nick Giroux the lead and only non-member of the family. Son Terry Clefman played third stone, while son-in-law Dick Brown was listed as the second player of the rink. The bright, sunny weather that greeted the visitors provided a foretaste of the hospitality they were to receive from the host Scots during the next 2 weeks. From Prestwick, the visitors traveled to Mauchline and the famous Kay's Curling Stone Factory, where they met the newest entrants in the Scotch Cup competition, the Swedish rink from Norrköping. There was tall and blonde Rolf Arvidsson, the skip of the team, talking to the factory manager. Third man, Knut Bartels. And the front end of the foursome, lead Arne Stern and second Per-Ivar Rydgren. This is granite, the hard granite quarried only in the fabled island of Ailsa Craig, the granite that is familiar to curlers the world o'er. Mrs. Wiley, the present owner and inheritor of the tradition of the family business, helped to explain the intricacies of the manufacture to the Swedes and to the Canadian guests. Earl Bourne, outgoing president of the Dominion Curling Association, watched the hand polishing that helped to put the finishing touches to the 42-pound rocks, and as they departed, they passed stack upon stack of curling stones destined for Canada, or Switzerland perhaps even to nearby Falkirk, where the opening matches were scheduled for play. This is the first year in which 4 countries have been invited to participate in Scotch Cup play, and the sound that greeted the early arrivals at the Falkirk ice rink was the skirl and sterling melody of the pipes. Oops! William Crabbe, vice chairman of the sponsoring Scotch Whisky Association, said a few words of welcome, and then it was the turn of the Lord Provost of Falkirk, William Leishman, to offer greetings. Now the audience caught their first glimpse of the rink from the Erith, Bruce Castle and Dunsmore Club, which had won the right to represent Scotland. Bobby Young, at 59 years of age, was the oldest player present. He threw the lead stones for the Scots. Sandy Anderson, he of the intense concentration, was second player. Playing as vice skip of the rink was tall and dignified John Pearson, no stranger to curling or to the Canadian team. While the skip, Willie Young, combined a doughty toughness and competitive fire with a typically Scottish sense of hospitality and humor. The spectators were eager to see the start of the games and to see the various styles of play and equipment used. They were familiar with the North American style of hack and the long and graceful slide that it produced. While they accepted the sliding delivery with reservations, they were certain that it wouldn't be seen in Scotland soon, if only because of the difference in hacks. The metal hack used by both Scots and Swedes, and which resembles an oversized belt buckle, sits on top of the ice and is anchored with 4 corner pins. Then there was the time-honored crampet, which Willie Young used in preference to a hack as his personal launching pad. It too sat on top of the ice and was removed for the next player and the next variety of hack. But these starting points weren't the only differences to be noted by the onlookers. There was also a difference in sweeping. The Scots and Swedes favored their time-honored brushes, which polished the ice to a keen gloss. while the Canadians and Americans relied on the power to be obtained from the rhythmic beating of the long-strawed corn brooms. The differences were just as pronounced in the style of games, too. There was the delicate draw of the Scots and their pupils, the Swedes. Compared, more robust hitting of the Canadians and the Americans. As for the games themselves, the Canadians were there to defend their crown, the Scots to act as friendly but tough hosts. The U.S. foursome was there to try for an upset win, and the Swedes, present at Scotch Cup play for the first time, were there to learn. The opening round was a contrast of styles. On one sheet of ice, the Richardsons and the Clefmans traded knockout for knockout, leaving the house clear for the final draw shots of Ernie Richardson and Dick Brown. Richardson, of course, was rated as the Goliath of the game. After all, he had the reputation and the record of victories which rated him as an all-time curling great. But if Ernie Richardson was Goliath, then the U.S. had a David of its own, in the person of Dickie Brown, ready to match Goliath, curling stone for curling stone. Two sheets of ice away, it was permissible to wonder if the same game was being played. Many of the ends presented pictures similar to this one. Count them all up. 13 of the 14 rocks so far this end still in play. It provided the spectators with a chance to see the best of both worlds of curling, the hard-hitting accuracy of the new world and the precision-like draw shots of the old. That first round of play saw the Richardsons defeat the U.S. challengers 11-5, while the Scots took the measure of the Swedes 12-8. In the second round, hit and roll shots of the Canadians, such as this one by skip Ernie Richardson, were too much for the Swedes, who dropped a 5 on the first end and went down to a 17-7 defeat. In the other match of the second round, the accuracy of the Americans, and in particular Dick Brown, provided the U.S. visitors with a 10-7 margin of victory. Here's a sample of the draw artistry of the youthful left-hander. The third round provided the match the spectators had been waiting for. Canada against Scotland. In 1959, the Richardsons had defeated Willie Young to win the inaugural Scotch Cup. Now they were meeting again. On the opening end, Willie attempted Canadian strategy by blanking the end. The Richardsons retaliated with a Scottish draw game. And when the contest was over, Canada owned a 20-4 victory and a Scotch Cup record. The other third round match was a tight affair between the United States and Sweden, save for the first end when the Hibbing team counted a big 4. On only one occasion was Sweden able to score better than one. Here on the sixth end, when skip Rolf Arvidsson attempted a draw to the 4-foot for a 4 count. His draw is heavy, but wicks in for 3, and the score is 7-6 for the United States. On the ninth end, the Minnesota foursome scored a 3 that ensured victory. The final count provided them with a 13-8 win as the games in Falkirk came to an end.